Have you ever wondered if the very things that bring you pleasure might actually be hiding something much deeper? They say pleasure is the reward, but what if it's really the disguise? What if the chocolate, the scrolling, the laughter, even desire itself are not true joy, but shadows cleverly dressed to mask something far more primitive and far more painful? Stay with me until the end of this video because you're going to discover a powerful secret about pleasure that could change the way you live your life forever. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you felt truly full without needing something more? Not just distracted, not just entertained, but deeply, profoundly untouched by craving. That's rare, isn't it? Because here's the truth. We live in an age of pleasure, yet most of us are starving. Carl Jung once warned that the very things we chase for comfort are often the things that keep us from healing. And once you see this clearly, you'll never look at pleasure the same way again. Picture this. You wake up in the morning and almost without thinking, you grab your phone. You're not waiting for news. No one urgently needs you, yet you scroll anyway. A video makes you laugh for 3 seconds and then it's gone. Another and another. Before you realize it, hours disappear, but the ache inside doesn't. You set the phone down and maybe reach for something sweet or salty. You weren't hungry. You just needed something, and that something wasn't food. It wasn't dopamine. It was silence. Escapeness, a pause in the storm you don't have words for. This is how Jung saw it. Every one of us carries a shadow, a hidden part of the self we try to bury. Distraction and pleasure are the shovel. When you eat, not because you're hungry. When you scroll, not because you care. When you desire, not because you love. You're not choosing joy. You're choosing anesthesia. The painful truth is this. Most pleasure isn't really pleasure. It's temporary relief from self-awareness, but the price is steep. Every hit of false pleasure creates a deeper hunger for the real thing. When we don't get it, we feel broken. But we're not broken, we're simply unaware. We've been conditioned to mistake escape for enjoyment. The pleasure we chase is often a symptom, not a solution. Think back. Maybe as a child you cried, but no one really listened. You learned that feeling pain got you nothing but smiling, performing, distracting yourself got you approval. That reward stuck, and so you repeated it until in adulthood your pain became quiet. But your pleasures grew loud, louder than your loneliness, louder than your fears, louder than the child inside you who just wanted to be held. Pleasure has memory. Each time you silence pain with a distraction, your body learns to fear stillness. That's why silence feels unbearable. That's why you can't sit alone, why you need noise even in the shower. Jung knew this. Pleasure, when misused, becomes an enemy of the soul, not because pleasure itself is evil, but because it helps us avoid the truth. Think of it like this. Chasing pleasure is like chasing a mirage in the desert. Each time you reach for it, it disappears. But you keep running, convinced the next one will finally quench your thirst. The irony is that true pleasure, the kind that feeds the soul, is usually quiet. It doesn't demand, it doesn't numb, it expands you. It shows up in a deep conversation, in finishing something you feared, in waking up one day and realizing you no longer need the thing that once controlled you. It's not easy, but it's the only kind of pleasure worth craving. Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." Pleasure is one of the most beautiful absurdities we've ever invented. Because the truth is, pleasure is not bad, it's sacred when chosen with intention, but it becomes poison when it replaces presence. Maybe you felt that strange guilt after pleasure. One more episode, one more text, one more bite. That guilt isn't because you did something evil, it's because a deeper part of you knows you weren't really fed. You just avoided the hunger. That's why shadow work is so important. It's not about becoming dark or edgy. It's about noticing the moments you betray yourself for relief and saying, I see you, and this time I choose truth over escape. Let me give you an example. I once heard of someone who couldn't stop chasing relationships. They said they were hopelessly romantic, but every relationship ended the same way: intensity, obsession, crash, repeat. They thought they loved love, but what they really loved was distraction, because when they were alone, the silence got too loud. That's what happens when pleasure becomes a plaster over wounds that were never healed. The danger isn't that pleasures exist. The danger is when we never question why we need them. Because pleasure is not healing, it's not peace, it's not power. Pleasure is a tool, and when a tool is misused, it becomes dangerous. So how do we turn it around? By learning to delay gratification. Think of the last time you resisted that craving, that click, that message, and later felt proud of yourself. Why? Because discipline isn't just control, it's self-trust. And trust is the real high. When you trust yourself, pleasure no longer controls you. You choose it intentionally, freely, beautifully. That's when pleasure becomes pleasure again, not a drug, not a chain, but a celebration. Imagine walking into a quiet room with no phone, no noise, just you, and instead of panic, you feel at home. Not because you have everything, but because you are everything. That's what Jung meant by individuation, becoming whole, not through denial or constant grinding, but through integration. The ability to enjoy pleasure without needing it as a bandage, the ability to embrace silence without fearing it, the ability to sit with yourself and like who you are with. And here's the final truth. Freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about not needing to. Real pleasure isn't the chocolate or the scroll or the ego stroke. Real pleasure is the moment you no longer need to be distracted from yourself. When you can sit in stillness and smile, not because it's empty, but because it's full of truth, full of presence, full of power. That's the transformation Jung pointed toward. When you stop needing pleasure to survive, you become powerful. Marketing can't hypnotize you. Addictions lose their grip, because presence has returned, and presence is the purest rebellion. So next time the craving hits, pause. Don't shame it. Don't fight it. Just ask yourself, what do I truly need right now? That question alone can break the loop, because you are not your hunger. You are the one who chooses how to feed it. And once you see this clearly, you'll never look at pleasure the same again. You'll still laugh, still love, still enjoy the sweetness of life, but you'll do it with awareness. And that awareness will set you free. If this message touched something inside you, take a moment now, subscribe to Psychology of Happiness. Leave a comment with what resonated most, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Together, let's create a world where pleasure isn't an escape, but a conscious choice. And remember, your greatest freedom is not found in the next high, but in the quiet power of being fully present.